Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and as always, joining me today, I guess he's the Murtaugh to my Riggs, Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's up, Brian?
I'm too old for this stuff.
Because we run a family-friendly show. See, I knew you would get that. For those who don't, that's the reference to Riggs and Murtaugh, the buddy cops from Lethal Weapon, played by Mel Gibson, and I almost said Donald Glover.
Mr. Glover.
Yeah, Danny.
Yeah, it's not Danny.
Yeah, I got the Donald Glover's like in anything and everything these days. The guy's on fire. He's everywhere. You can't get rid of him or Jason Bateman at this point. But anyways, I digress. I don't know that we want to go too far off the reservation, but did you have any special announcement for everyone out there, Brian, or what's going on?
I do.
Okay.
So as we may have mentioned a time or two in the last couple podcasts, I put about 193 or 200 items up on eBay.
That's all.
And just a few pieces of Steelers memorabilia up on eBay. And one of our loyal listeners did some bidding, and he won one of the items. And he has inspired us because after he won, he went ahead and paid for his item, and then he sent me a message. And the message essentially says, I don't actually want this. I bought this because what I would like you to do is to give it to someone like a kid who maybe doesn't have enough money to ever purchase their own autographed helmet. And I thought, out of those 200 plus items, there's probably about 6 or 7 that may not sell. And on top of that, he's also bidding on some other items, and he says every one of the ones he wins, he's going to do this with. And we were trying to figure out a way to come up with this, and we'll figure it out and play it out. But, listen for more details because we were really inspired by his generosity. And what I think we're going to do is we're going to try and come up with a way for kids, and I don't know how we're going to determine what a kid is.
Does a 36-year-old co-host of the SCU podcast qualify as a kid?
No.
Are you sure? I've been told I'm very immature.
Well, that's as may be. I'll tell you what. You want to put up a video that shows why you, the 36-year-old podcast co-host, might deserve and desperately needs a Steelers autographed helmet, or why you're a fan of the Steelers. We haven't fleshed this out yet. It really just kind of happened today. So listen and watch the website, because we're going to come up with something to allow listeners out there and we'll tweet it out and do other things, to get a way for you to just tell us why you're the biggest Steelers fan in the world and you deserve, an autographed helmet. And we're going to have several of them to give away. And there's no strings on this. You just got to be the ones that inspire us to say that's the kid that deserves it. And the only thing I think at the end of this that we're going to ask is that when the helmet arrives, because we'll mail it to you, take a picture of yourself or a video of yourself and post it and then hash us on it so that we get the chance to see what happens. And parents can nominate their kids. That I think is good. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to some of the feedback, and I just wanted – there's a few things here. One, if you're wondering, you're listening to this, it's on-demand radio, basically, a podcast. How do you get a hold of Joe or Brian? Well, we have the email. Do people still use the email? We do have the email. They do, I think. Fan mail, one word, fan mail at steelcityunderground.com. That's one way. We also have the hotline, which has been quiet lately, but we're not trying to push things on anybody. But if this is of interest to you, and it's the off season, we need some things to talk about. And this certainly excited us, because it was like when you told me about it, I was like, wow, pretty cool. And you were like, yeah. So you were excited. You were like Beavis sitting on the couch. Oh, I didn't use Beavis and Butthead as one of the duo things. Oh, that would have been great. But 203-900 for SCU, and you could text us or leave us a voice message or something of that nature. You could tweet at us. You could DM us individually or the Steel City Underground. We're going to compile all of this, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and put our heads together. Not just me and Brian, but a few other people at Steel City Underground, because we've got the ladies too, like Terry and Tina, who will help balance this out, and then there's the millennials like Zach and Eric, who will get giddy, and everybody will I think we'll put it to like a vote if we have like that many submissions. So feel free to shoot those all our way. So, but one other thing there, Brian, what was the helmet? Can I ask that? It wasn't Neil O'Donnell, was it?
I don't own, and have I not explained this to you?
Well,
he who shall not be named, you keep naming him, and I don't own anything of he who shall not be named. The helmet in question was a Mike Vrabel and Fred McAfee helmet. It's a dual signed helmet.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's got two signatures, ex-Steelers, and there's going to be, at least I know of. Right now, there's 4 others that I know didn't sell. The rest of the auctions, there's like 100 and something left. They don't go off until tomorrow. But once those are done, there may be 3-4 more that don't sell. It's possible that this person who wants to remain anonymous, and at the moment, I'm trying hard to honor his request to stay anonymous. But I'm really touched by the fact that he did this, and I feel like he deserves some recognition for it. But he wants to stay anonymous.
Yeah.
I'm not going to out him.
We don't do that.
But if he wins again, then that could be more stuff that comes in. So I don't know the final count of the number of helmets we're going to have to give away. But needless to say, I will tell you that of the items I listed, I won't have anything left.
That is insane. That is absolutely crazy. Well, you know what? You put some stuff up last year, and I remember I picked up the Chris Boswell signed jersey from you. So
yep.
I was happy with it. You didn't screw me over there in the eBay and PayPal land. So that's all
not
good.
Me.
But speaking,
by the way, there's a Chris Boswell signed helmet that says Wizard of Oz that's up right now.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to get him to sign the football. I'm working on a football, as you know, that I'm trying to get all the kickers to sign. And so far I only have Sweden because I've been lazy, but I had an opportunity for Jeff Reed and missed it. So I between Reed and Boz, I should be able to get 3 of them combined with Sweden, who's already signed that. And he signed a terrible towel that I have. This one's dear to me because they made them for a year. I think in 2013 it was they made them with the other team's logos on them for each game, and it had the date of the game.
I remember
on
that.
them.
Yeah.
And this was the one where he beat the Ravens at home with the field goal as time expired. And when I brought it up to the table last year, this was at the Fan Blitz, he looked at it and he was like, I remember this game. And he was like, oh, I definitely remember. And this team, he was like, man, he was like, he said something to the effect of basically, this is, business family type thing, but they legitimately hate us and vice versa is, to paraphrase it, and I know he was holding back a little bit. This is the kicker talking about this, which is pretty awesome. Sean Sweden, so awesome guy. But we were talking about kids. We're talking about youth. I think that's a good segue, since we did get off the rails a little bit, to go into today's topic of
rookies.
You know what? I think I want to go through the draft picks maybe, but there's some undrafted guys. I don't know, man. The Steelers roster, this is the reason this is going to be a topic today, folks. What we're going to talk about is what rookie or rookies will have the biggest impact in the 2018 season here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And with quite the talented and loaded roster. This isn't like a few years ago where there were spots up for grabs, and you know what? You had 3 guys on a defense start in 1 year. Javon Hargrave, first guy on a defensive line in like 30 years or something, Yep. Artie Burns eventually cracked the starting lineup. Sean Davis. This is a very kind of fleshed out roster. You've got those guys. You've got those younger guys. They have come in like those 3 and have secured their spots or so. We're going to talk about that. And then some others like TJ Watt and other guys that maybe there's not as many holes in the Steelers roster as there had been in the past to, let's say, hey, which of these rookies is actually going to get on the field and be able to do something? Now, I don't know that we have to worry. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that yet. We're going to go through each of the names. But, yeah, let's start. I think the top of the list is Terrell Edmonds. And I don't know, man. This is a tough one for me because if Edmonds sees a lot of time, there could be a few variables here. One is the Steelers play a lot of like hybrid sub packages where they have more DBs on the field. Are they going to put like a guy like almost like that dime backer role, a guy that's larger than your typical corner, but somebody that can cover a tight end? They're going to put him on the field in lieu of maybe having a linebacker or an extra defensive lineman. That's where I could see Edmonds kind of coming into play, but otherwise he has to beat out Morgan Burnett, who's a heck of a veteran. And if he does that, it doesn't say a whole lot for Morgan Burnett in even though he didn't get the largest contract, because the safety free agency class is just bizarre this year. But I don't know. I don't see that necessarily. And then there's Sean Davis, who enters his third year, may have been a little bit underperforming. And they talk about he's been getting reps, switching over to free safety, I guess, in the OTAs. They're doing a lot of experimenting with different things. Edmonds would have to beat either one of those two guys out to see a lot of playing time, because otherwise, if he's like in a kind of the way Will Gay was kind of used last season, he's only going to see about a quarter of the snaps. And you know what? I don't know how much of an impact can you make if you're playing like a quarter or less of the game. Maybe you get a pick, maybe you make, great tackle or blitz for a sack or pass breakup or something like that. But I don't know. When I look down the rest of the roster and all the rookies, unless he's a starter, I can't say that he's going to have the most impact of this rookie class.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually don't think that there's a starter right now coming out of this rookie class. And so I think that it's very likely that whoever does make the most impact, whoever is the most potentially impactful, is going to be doing it in a part-time role. And I'm like you. I'm torn about this. I have two guys that are in my mind as potential guys that can do it. And Edmonds is one of them, because I think he may, depending on how he evolves and develops in training camp, he may get more time than we think, just not at the safety position. I think, they play a huge amount of their defense is in these sub packages, as you said. And I think that there's a real good chance he's going to get some experimental looks. And we talked about this when we talked about the inside linebacker position and how the linebackers are going to be used. I think he could get looks as, sub package linebacker, dime backer, money backer, whatever you want to call them, and inserted as the third safety in a lot of these sub packages. So I think that there's a good chance Edmonds gets a considerable amount of time, not starter time, obviously, but somewhere, I think, higher than 25% of the snaps, possibly maybe as high as 40% of the defensive snaps if he develops appropriately. They're not going to throw it at him, right? I mean, I expect them to push him because he's a first-round pick, and first-round picks are supposed to contribute immediately. But that, as you said, that's hard in this defense. It's not like there's a bunch of empty spots. And I think Burnett is a good signing. And it gives them quality depth. And I think Sean Davis is going to move more to free safety, as we've seen in these OTAs. They just have a lot of options here with a bunch of, as we've said, Swiss Army knife kind of guys. So Edmonds is a guy, I think, who has the potential to be the guy that contributes the most. I'm not certain that he's the guy, but he has the potential.
Yeah, in that scenario, the other thing, like we said with the inside linebackers, is whether John Bostick or Vince Williams is on the field. Here's the thing, and you know what, this come to mind, just bringing up Vince Williams, and I pick up the Lindy's book every year. I've been reading them since I was a kid, probably at least 20 years. Lindy's Pro Football, it's the annual preview type thing, and they publish it. It gets published in June, which means it's going to press a few weeks before that, so it's already out of date by the time I'm already reading it in some cases. But Ed Bouchette does the piece for the Steelers. It's like 3 or 4 pages long, and they have like a beat writer or someone that's very close to the team for all of the teams, which is why it's such a great read. And then they say something about all the players, and I forget constantly. This is why I'm kind of giving him credit for jogging my memory as I'm reading this over the weekend. Vince Williams, 8 sacks, right? You don't even think about it. He's like, we're always talking Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward, we're talking, TJ Watt, we're talking secondary, and we're just like not really paying attention to what Vince Williams was able to contribute last season, which is just odd. It's just odd to me. You know what it is? I don't think he has the same amount of pressure with being a 6th round pick back, 5-6 years ago. Ryan Shazier getting hurt, or when Ryan Shazier was in there, you don't think of Vince Williams too much. So it's tough for me to say. I don't know what John Bostick is or who he is yet. I also don't know if he'll stay healthy, which has been a knock on him for a few of the teams he had been on in some of his pro career. He appears to be athletic enough, but do they keep 2 inside linebackers on there, or do they flirt with Edmonds and Davis creeping more towards the line of scrimmage in more of a hybrid role? Because both of those guys capable of playing multiple positions in the secondary. So is Morgan Burnett, by the way. So that's kind of exciting. So if Edmonds gets on the field, he has a chance. I mean, he's the 1st round pick. He's going to have the most attention on him. However, I think the guy that might be able to get the most attention, that may open the most eyes, because it's the shiny new toy all the time. You talk about having a lot of guys around you and kind of being in someone else's shadow, like I was saying with Vince Williams. James Washington taken in the 2nd round, wide receiver. You've got no bigger shadow than Antonio Brown, and then there's Juju Smith-Schuster. Washington, now this is going to be interesting because I've also pumped my brakes on this too, because I was thinking about the guys who could replace Martavis Bryant, and that's a whole other topic that we could explore here in the future. But what if Mike Tomlin and company do what they did with, let's say, Martavis Bryant? I don't think played until like the 7th game of the regular season. Now, I think he was a little bit hurt too as a rookie, missed some time in camp and preseason and whatnot, and some of that contributed to it as well. But he was held back a little bit. They say they don't always throw the rookies out there right away. They got a learning curve coming from college, all these different things, learning the playbook, etc. But Sammy Coates was in that same boat too. Like, Sammy didn't play his rookie year at all,
right? Yep.
And then he barely played his 2nd year. Also, when you were, however which way you want to look at that, glass half empty, glass half full, with Sammy Coates and his crazy looking fingers. James Washington, if he gets out there, and Juju too. I mean, Juju. Let's put it this way: Juju is out there more than I would have thought, with as deep as a wide receiver group as they had last season with AB and Bryant and Eli Rogers, who's not currently on the roster right now. So you take him out of the equation. You still have Darius Hayward-Bay and Justin Hunter, who are still there this year, and Juju still got the time. Now Juju is there, and that's one more body you have to leapfrog. But James Washington's supposed to be the deep threat guy. I think all these guys are deep threat guys when you get right down to it. And as you say, Swiss Army knife. But I think Washington will be more or less the guy outside the numbers they're going to rely on to eventually take the reps that were Martavis Bryant's. Although, if Vance McDonald stays healthy, Vance McDonald can also go down the seam and be surprising too. He's fast, he's big, he's a target. So, I don't know. It's tough for me here to be excited about James Washington, but when I put him up against Terrell Edmonds, I'm almost ready to say, you know what? I think Washington's the guy of this rookie class who's going to be the head of the class.
That's exactly where I am. 100% actually. As I said, I'm torn between him and Edmonds because I think that Edmonds will have the chance, but I'm much more leaning towards James Washington simply because I think the opportunities are going to be even greater for him. As you said, he's going to end up getting, if he earns it. And I think, there's video, Steelers posted video of one really nice, back end zone catch he made in training camp, or not training camp, in OTAs. And I get it. It's still football in shorts. Look, last year, Justin Hunter thrilled everybody when it was football in shorts. And then, how much time did he really get during the season? Almost next to nothing. And he's doing that again, by the way. He's looking good in OTAs and football in shorts.
It's a shame.
Yeah. So I don't know Is this the year that Justin Hunter really makes a step forward? I don't know. I think that really Juju is the number 2, even though I don't know how much he's going to play outside. I think it's more likely he's going to play a lot of slot receiver. He will maybe play outside in two receiver sets, but we'll see. But I think that number 3 position is sort of de facto James Washington's to lose at this point, because that is why they drafted him. They drafted him to take Martavis Bryant's reps. He has to run out and get them, though. I mean, he has to prove that he's worthy of those reps. I think they're going to give him every chance to fail, and because of that, assuming he doesn't fail, assuming that he is capable of making his game work at the NFL level, and the speed shows up, and the deep threat ability is there, and his combat catchability translates. If all those things come together, he really does have the most opportunity to be strongly impactful. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think there's a good chance he gets 5 touchdowns this season. And maybe on the upside of that, maybe even more, just because of the way that offense rolls.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you, Brian. And as far as Martavis Bryant, in replacing his production, we'll see where Washington is. I could tell you one thing. When I was watching on draft night, or during the draft, I should say, Terrell Edmonds was it was an interesting pick, and one that a lot of people disliked or felt was a reach or whatever, and everybody was just yelling safety. It's almost like the Artie Burns pick from a few years ago, where they're yelling cornerback. You pick a cornerback, and it's like, not that one. You know what I mean? It's funny. But yeah. James Washington had me jump off the couch, and a lot of people complained and poo-pooed the James Washington as a pro because, you know what? That's all because of the Oklahoma State offense and all because of Mason Rudolph. Well, guess who got drafted next and happens to be on the Steelers? And, as you watch some of this kid, since we're on the kid roll, do his work in, the rookie camps and the off-season workouts and stuff right now, it's exciting to watch, but it's hard to think of any opportunity you'd have unless it was a very unfortunate set of circumstances on which he ends up under center this season. The only way I see Mason Rudolph being talk of the town, so to speak, is say the Steelers get to week 17, they're playing the Bengals at home like they had been playing the Browns for a few seasons. They got everything under wraps. Let's just say Landry Jones isn't there anymore, Landry Jones is hurt, or they decide to play Mason regardless of Landry Jones' status or Josh Dobbs' status. And Rudolph comes out and drops, 2-3 TDs and a near 100 quarterback rating against the Bengals, playing a few backups and stuff. And let's just say Edmonds has been, playing 20% of the snaps all season, really maybe has 24 tackles and broke up a pass or two. And, he hasn't been like a liability, but he hasn't like stood out because he hasn't made like these giant highlight reel plays. Let's just say Washington's in the same type of category. He catches 20-30 balls and only has like 1 touchdown. The touchdown's like in week 6 or 7. So by the time you get 10 weeks later and you're entering the playoffs and whatever happen, then it's going to be the year 2019, and it's going to be fresh in everyone's head as we're about almost this time next year where you're saying who made an impact. You're going to be like, man, that Mason Rudolph, he comes in and does something like Matt Flynn did for Aaron Rodgers years ago with the Packers and drops 5 touchdowns. There's just something crazy. The buzz will be tremendous, but that's the only way I see him making an impact.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that unfortunately for him, if he is the guy that makes the biggest impact, the season has probably gone in the tank because it means Ben's hurt, Ben's out, and it also means that Landry's not there either. I just don't see that as happening, and he was not drafted to be an impactful player. This was a pick that is for the future. This was a pick that because of value and specifically, potential long-term value that they had to make, it hopefully, we'll see, hopefully means that coming down the road, they don't have to continue to look for their next quarterback. Hopefully they put themselves in a position where they have him. We will have to wait and see on that. And hopefully we will have to wait and see at least for next year and hopefully maybe even the following year, because, the only way he makes an impact is if the top two quarterbacks are gone. I don't see a viable way for Mason Rudolph to be the, outstanding rookie in this season. I think it's kind of a red shirt for him in many ways. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to knock on wood. I don't want him to be the impactful player.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And speaking of going down the list, God, I'm still struggling with this one. Chukwuma Okorafor. You know what? This is an this is an interesting one because it could be very much just like you were saying, and that, well, if we see Chuck's out there, and let's say he has an opportunity to make an impact, it's probably because someone else isn't out there. Now, that someone else now it hasn't been Alejandro Villanueva. He's been basically an Iron Man playing every snap, but you know who missed a lot of games last year? 9 games, actually, was Marcus Gilbert. He missed 3 the season before. Now, of course, 4 of those games last season was the substance or whatever, PD, whatever thing it was for suspension. He was also banged up a little bit, and that afforded Chris Hubbard to play a lot, and he played that into a big 5-year contract with the Cleveland Browns. Hubbard's not here anymore. Now, the guy that was next in line, Gerald Hawkins, is now on IR, speaking of which, McGee, the tight end, injured reserve, like we said. That's a good sign for him. Good sign for him to be back. Probably not for the season at all because, as I said, Achilles. I mean, that's probably going to keep him out. But not. And I don't know that they would use one of those designations at the time to bring him back necessarily either. But I think he'll be in camp again. So just to follow up on that. But, yeah, if Gilbert happens to be hurt or they need this other guy in the jumbo set packages, we may actually see Okorafor on the field more than we see Edmonds. Maybe if it takes time for Washington to get out there because they decide to go with one of the veteran receivers or Eli Rogers gets re-signed. Rudolph, he's probably not going to get a helmet on game days if they end up keeping Landry Jones or whatever be the case. Here's the guy here who has the golden opportunity, perhaps, to make an impact.
Absolutely. I can't stress how much Chris Hubbard was an impact player for the Steelers last 2 seasons. And that guy was going to be, and why I can never remember his name. Help me.
Huh? What? Gerald Hawkins. I didn't actually
Gerald
say
Hawkins.
It. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I can never remember Gerald Hawkins' name, and I don't know why. But that was going to be his role this year. Gerald Hawkins was going to be the Chris Hubbard. That's what they hoped. And that all has gone out the window. So that means that Chuck Okorafor, hey, I might have even said something right for once. I think Chuck Okorafor has a open opportunity for him, to take big strides in his career and development if he can handle it. Look, it's tough for rookie offensive linemen in the NFL unless you're a top-tier guy. And while Okorafor is not a, bad player, he was not considered one of the elites. So, it may take him a little while to adjust, but look, let's be honest. He's got Coach Munchak there, and if there's a guy who can get him ready, it's Coach Munchak. I agree with you. Considering the amount of time that Marcus Gilbert has missed for whatever reason, you can almost guarantee Okorafor is going to get game time this year, and he's going to get it as a starter at some point because Gilbert is likely to be hurt. So, he could be the surprise, outstanding rookie if everybody else is a little slow to start, if they don't really catch their rhythm until late in the season, and Okorafor is there. It could happen.
I don't see Bryce Harris necessarily being that fill-in for that spot.
No, I don't buy that
either.
I don't buy that. He's a body.
Yeah, and the same thing by the same token of playing time and working that into a starting role. That's exactly what Villanueva did. Villanueva was that, big body, jumbo package, eligible, pass eligible. What's the word I'm looking for there?
Tight end.
Tight end. Well, yeah, tight end, but they say whoever's reported eligible. The referee does. Because one of them has to be acknowledged as a receiver and can, in theory, catch the ball if it was thrown to them. Eligible to have the ball thrown to them, not one of these ineligible receivers downfield type penalties or something like that. So I digress. This is why Okorafor could be the guy with the biggest impact. I'm still lean Washington.
So am I.
When I look at the just banging through the other three names here, Marcus Allen, the safety from Penn State. He's going to
special teams.
Yeah, I mean, like Brian Allen last year. I mean, it's just not going to happen when you're that far. They have way too many guys. We already named the three safeties with Burnett, Davis, and Edmonds. They have too many guys, and they have plenty of corners as well. They're 4 deep there as well with Hayden Burns, Hilton, and Sutton, and then of course 5 if you want to go Sensabaugh, but I'm not willing to go that far. I guess for a cornerback 5 you could do worse, and then there's still Brian Allen, whatever it may be that he does. Jalen Samuels is the one that's interesting to me, though, because I could totally picture a world where this guy has a special teams touchdown or a short yardage touchdown if they happen to put him back there. I just don't see, for the amount of money and how hard they ride Le'Veon Bell and how little James Conner saw the field alone last season, I don't see a world where Samuels gets more than 5 touches, if that. He's going to be in the nightmare territory. But I do think he's on the roster, and I'll let you get opine as well as soon as I give this in-depth analysis on Josh Frazier's year practice squad. So there you go. I'm sorry, Josh, but not. You're going to have to work for it, buddy. You've got if any uphill battle, his is probably the steepest.
I will. Let me start with Marcus Allen. As I said, I think Marcus Allen is going to be a special teams contributor. I think that is his avenue to making the 53. If he cannot contribute on special teams, I don't think he makes the 53-man roster. And I think if that's the case, then he becomes a potential practice squad guy, even though who knows whether he is going to be able to clear waivers to get on the practice squad. Jalen Samuels, I think, also will make the majority of his contributions on special teams, maybe as a returner, but also as that situational running back. And, his route to being the top contributing rookie will be primarily through that, unless something untoward happens and Le'Veon Bell either decides to sit out or gets hurt. In which case, then James Conner is going to move forward, and they're going to need to use more of a group of running backs as opposed to just one back. And if that's a rotational kind of scheme, then I think Jalen Samuels will have a much greater opportunity, especially as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Now, Josh Frazier, while I agree with you pretty much 100%. Let's say I agree with you 99.9%.
Really?
Because there's a point. Here's the 0.1. Yeah. 0.1%, 0.01%, or whatever it is left. I can't do math right now. It's too late in the weekend. But if in fact Josh Frazier doesn't end up on the practice squad, it'll be because he beat out Big Dan McCullers. And if he comes to play, because that's his competition in my view, he's coming to take Dan McCullers and to push Dan McCullers. And if McCullers lets him push him, he could steal that spot. And if he does, it doesn't mean that he's on the practice squad. And I think it's still very unlikely, maybe even less of a chance than what I said, I think, of him making the 53. But it's even less likely he becomes the contributing rookie for the season. If he does, man, we had an underperforming rookie class. But
true.
But I still think there is actually an opportunity for this kid to make the 53 if he can push Daniel McCullers off the roster, because that's what it'll take for him to do it. Otherwise, I think I agree with you. He's destined for the practice squad.
Yeah, it's he was hurt, and that's how Daron Payne got the spot at Alabama. And then, that's how Josh Frazier ended up being the backup. And it just seems like, it's strange because there's not much of a pedigree there to even be drafted. But, of course, as we mentioned, Carl Dunbar, formerly of Alabama, some inside intel there. Last time there was some inside intel, though, was when Carnell Lake had recommended Shaquille Richardson. And
that didn't work out so good,
that didn't work out at camp. I mean, that was – so, you never know. You never can tell. There's so many factors that go into it. I was looking down the undrafted free agent list, and I don't think there's a single name who jumps off the page that has maybe one, and there's only the one. I know you're going to think of the same name that would have a legit opportunity to crack to 53, and that's the Florida State why can't I speak today? Matthew Thomas from Florida State, the Florida State product, the prospect, whatever you want to call him. He's a linebacker, and it's on a team that needs linebackers. But he's in he's going to be of the Tyler Matakevich variety when it comes to playing time, and that's going to be nil. So I don't think he'd have much of an impact. There's always the possibility a few of these guys stick around the practice squad, like Pitts Quadri Henderson or with Patrick Morris, the center. Was he from TCU, I believe? There's a few guys like that, but you know what? Nobody really. At this moment, we don't know. When we see training camp, you may get a guy like Mike Hilton that just comes out of nowhere. And you know what? Mike Hilton, you talk about like impactful rookies. What?
That's an impactful rookie, yeah.
It's pretty crazy. He was completely undrafted and toiling around and actually became a rookie last year and a starter and everything else. But still, I don't know, like when you're looking at it at this time last year, you're probably still all fingers point at TJ Watt or Juju Smith-Schuster, the first two picks. So that's where I'll leave it, is with the first two picks. But there's a good argument and several cases here for others to maybe, claim the mantle there. But I would like it if several of them become impactful players, because you know what? That just means the Steelers are rocking and rolling in 2018.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw another name in there, not because I legitimately think there's a chance that this happens, but because I just want it to. And that name is Christian Scotland Williamson. Why? Because he's ginormous. He's a tight end, and I just want this guy to succeed. And the fact that he's essentially, if I'm not misunderstanding this, they're going to be able to keep him around and not get hit with a roster spot.
Correct.
For him.
Yes.
I think, he was making crazy over the shoulder catches in OTAs. I think he's got the kind of hands from playing rugby that will help him in this game. It's just how stiff the learning curve is going to be and how well he can adjust to the way that the rules are in the NFL. I think the kid has the talent to be able to move ahead. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but I just like the idea of a ginormous 6'9" guy running down the middle of the field as a tight end and bowling people over. It looks cool to me. So I'm hoping that this foreign exchange student essentially is able to put it all together and make himself a career in the NFL.
Yeah, he gets the exemption because he's like the UK guy, so they have the whole exchange thing. But, well, that's about all the more we could speak on the topic for today. But, hey, if you have a kid to nominate for the helmets for whatever reason, feel free to do that. I have a kid who might want to be nominated over looking over my shoulder, actually, right now. Hey, Chloe, are you sitting over there? Wouldn't you like a Steelers helmet? And she's giving me a strange, funny look. Now she's shy. Any other time she would be screaming her little head off. But now she can't qualify. She said friends and family, this not included. And sorry, Eric, if you happen to be listening. I keep teasing Eric. He's not even listening anymore for it to take effect. Maybe somebody will get to him. But shoot us the email, fanmail@steelcityunderground.com. The phone number is 203-900-4SCU. Also, let us know if you're interested in some of those other topics like the survival guide stuff, the man caves, getting tickets, where to tailgate, how to tailgate, where to stay, what to see, all those kinds of fun things. There's some other topics we would like to discuss here. So until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. not Riggs and Murtaugh, unfortunately. Be safe, be good, and we will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.